Some countries are spiraling into crisis at an alarming pace, facing unprecedented challenges. Inflation is soaring into double and even triple digits in several of these nations. Unemployment is hitting record highs, leaving millions without stable income or opportunities. Everyday essentials like food, water, and energy are becoming unattainable luxuries for many. These aren't just difficult times. These nations are on the brink of collapse. Political chaos, economic instability, and societal unrest are pushing them into dangerous territory. In this countdown of the 10 fastest collapsing countries in the world, we'll explore their struggles. These nations, once full of promise, now face overwhelming turmoil and instability. Civil unrest is surging, and failing economies are driving global instability to new heights. Environmental disasters and dire humanitarian crises are compounding the already critical situations. Currencies have lost most of their value, and governments are struggling to maintain control. What's driving these rapid declines, and is recovery even a possibility for these nations? Stay tuned as we uncover the unsettling realities behind their economic and social collapse. Let's dive into the hidden truths and shocking stories behind these collapsing nations. At number 1, we have Venezuela. Venezuela continues to struggle under the weight of hyperinflation, with rates exceeding 400%. This has rendered the bolivar nearly worthless, pushing much of the population into severe poverty. Basic necessities like food, medicine, and fuel are increasingly scarce and difficult to afford. Many families rely on informal markets and external aid just to meet their daily needs. The government's heavy dependence on oil exports has left the economy extremely vulnerable. Outdated infrastructure and declining oil production have further deepened the economic crisis. Millions of Venezuelans have fled the country, creating a massive migration crisis worldwide. For those still in Venezuela, power outages and water shortages are part of daily life. Skyrocketing prices and the lack of basic services make survival an ongoing challenge. Venezuela remains a stark example of economic collapse and societal hardship in today's world. At number 2, we have Lebanon, a nation grappling with one of the worst economic crises in modern history. Hyperinflation has surged close to 190%, leaving the Lebanese pound almost completely valueless. This has pushed the majority of the population into desperation and economic hardship. Essential goods like food, medicine, and fuel are now unaffordable for most Lebanese families. The banking sector has effectively collapsed, freezing billions of dollars in citizen deposits. This financial crisis has sparked widespread protests and growing anger among the population. Over 75% of Lebanese people now live below the poverty line, with unemployment exceeding 30%. Political paralysis and deep sectarian divides have prevented the implementation of necessary reforms. Foreign currency shortages and dependence on imports have further intensified the country's struggles. For many, daily life is a relentless battle for survival, placing Lebanon among the fastest collapsing nations today. At number 3, we have Haiti, a nation enduring an unrelenting cycle of poverty, violence, and natural disasters. More than 60% of Haitians live on less than $2.50 a day, struggling to meet basic needs. Inflation continues to rise, making essential goods increasingly unaffordable for the majority of the population. Gang violence has taken over much of Port-au-Prince, creating lawless zones beyond government control. This has left large parts of the capital in chaos, where safety is little more than a distant memory. Frequent natural disasters, including devastating hurricanes and earthquakes, have repeatedly struck Haiti. These disasters have further destroyed fragile infrastructure, displacing countless families in their wake. Limited access to healthcare, clean water, and sanitation leaves many vulnerable to deadly disease outbreaks. Governance is in disarray, and international aid efforts are often hindered by corruption and inefficiency. Daily life in Haiti has become a constant fight for survival, securing its place among the fastest collapsing nations today. At number 4, we have Syria, a nation ravaged by over a decade of devastating civil war. This prolonged conflict has left the country's economy, infrastructure, and society in utter ruins. Millions of Syrians have been displaced, both within the country and as refugees abroad. The ongoing conflict continues to fuel instability, making recovery efforts nearly impossible. Basic necessities such as food, water, and fuel are increasingly scarce and difficult to access. Skyrocketing inflation has rendered the Syrian pound almost completely worthless. The healthcare system is on the brink of collapse, with severe shortages of medicine and staff. Hospitals and clinics struggle to provide even the most basic and essential services. Large portions of Syria remain under the control of various factions, hindering rebuilding efforts. Environmental challenges like recurring droughts have further worsened food insecurity across the nation. Many families rely heavily on international aid just to survive day-to-day hardships. Syria's relentless humanitarian crisis and fractured governance solidify its position as one of the fastest collapsing nations in the world. At number 5, we have Sudan, a nation enduring one of the world's most devastating humanitarian crises. Ongoing civil conflict has forced millions of people to flee their homes in search of safety. Entire communities have been displaced, leaving countless families without shelter or resources. Inflation has skyrocketed to over 200%, making basic necessities unaffordable for the majority. Recent floods have devastated agricultural lands, worsening Sudan's already critical food insecurity. Large portions of the country remain under the control of militias and rebel factions. This has created a lawless environment where violence and instability dominate everyday life. The government has failed to restore order or address the urgent needs of its citizens. Its inability to act has left the nation in a state of complete economic and social collapse. Sudan's relentless cycle of conflict, poverty, and environmental disasters leaves little hope for recovery. This tragic combination firmly places Sudan among the fastest collapsing countries in the world. At number 6, we have Yemen, a nation experiencing one of the most severe humanitarian crises in modern history. Years of relentless civil war have left over 80% of the population in urgent need of assistance. This amounts to roughly 24 million people struggling to access basic necessities for survival. Inflation has made essentials like food and medicine unaffordable for the vast majority. The Yemeni rial continues to lose value, further eroding the purchasing power of families. Healthcare infrastructure is virtually non-existent, with hospitals crippled by critical shortages. Essential medicines, medical equipment, and trained staff are in alarmingly short supply. Diseases like cholera spread unchecked due to poor sanitation and limited access to clean water. Chronic famine has worsened as supply chains collapse and farmland remains damaged by conflict. Malnutrition, particularly among children, has reached catastrophic levels across the country. International aid is hindered by ongoing conflict and rising transportation costs fueled by high prices. Daily survival for Yemenis has become a desperate and unrelenting battle for basic sustenance. Yemen's prolonged conflict and humanitarian catastrophe firmly place it among the fastest collapsing nations in the world. At number 7, we have Myanmar, a nation plunged into turmoil following the military coup of 2021. The coup has triggered a devastating humanitarian and economic crisis across the country. Widespread violence and escalating conflicts have displaced over 1 million people from their homes. Many of these displaced individuals now live in overcrowded camps lacking basic necessities. The Burmese kyat has suffered a dramatic devaluation, while inflation has surged into double digits. This has made essentials like food, fuel, and medicine inaccessible to much of the population. International sanctions imposed in response to the coup have further crippled trade and investment. Resistance movements and military clashes have spread instability to regions throughout Myanmar. Humanitarian aid efforts have been severely hindered by ongoing violence and political unrest. Recent monsoon flooding has compounded the crisis, destroying homes, crops, and vital infrastructure. The combination of economic collapse, political violence, and environmental disasters has devastated Myanmar. These unrelenting hardships firmly place Myanmar among the fastest collapsing countries in the world. At number 8, we have the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, a country of immense natural wealth, yet crippling poverty. Despite holding some of the world's largest deposits of gold, diamonds, and cobalt, the majority of its people live in deprivation. Over 70% of the population survives below the poverty line, highlighting a stark paradox of wealth and need. Inflation has surged to 22%, making even basic necessities like food and fuel increasingly unaffordable. Armed groups and militias dominate large regions, especially in the resource-rich eastern areas. These groups engage in violent clashes, displacing millions and further destabilizing the nation. The government has struggled to regain control over these territories, leaving them lawless and chaotic. Infrastructure, education, and healthcare have been left in ruins due to ongoing violence and neglect. Corruption and mismanagement continue to divert resources away from crucial development initiatives. This has trapped the DRC in a cycle of poverty, instability, and unrealized potential. The DRC's inability to leverage its vast natural wealth solidifies its place among the fastest collapsing nations in the world. At number 9, we have Sri Lanka, a nation still grappling with the fallout from its 2022 bankruptcy declaration. Although inflation has recently improved, dropping to -1.7% in November 2024, economic hardships persist. The Sri Lankan rupee has significantly depreciated, further weakening the purchasing power of citizens. Essential goods like food, medicine, and fuel remain difficult to access for much of the population. Political instability continues to hinder progress, with frequent leadership changes fueling public dissatisfaction. These disruptions have delayed the implementation of critical economic reforms needed for recovery. Long queues for fuel and frequent power outages have become a frustrating part of daily life. Healthcare and education shortages add to the burdens faced by Sri Lankans in their everyday struggles. International aid and financial bailouts have provided some relief, but challenges remain overwhelming. The uncertain path to stability has firmly placed Sri Lanka among the fastest collapsing nations in the world. At number 10, we have Pakistan, a nation overwhelmed by natural disasters, economic instability, and political unrest. Devastating floods have displaced millions, destroyed agricultural lands, and pushed food prices to record highs. This has worsened food insecurity, leaving many families unable to afford even basic necessities. Inflation has soared to nearly 30%, making essential items like food, fuel, and medicine unaffordable for most. The Pakistani rupee has reached historic lows, further weakening the purchasing power of ordinary citizens. The country's soaring foreign debt limits the government's ability to respond effectively to the crisis. Energy shortages and frequent power outages disrupt businesses, schools, and daily life nationwide. Political instability, marked by leadership changes and escalating tensions, has paralyzed decision-making processes. This combination of economic strain and political turmoil has left millions facing an uncertain future. With mounting challenges and insufficient resources, Pakistan is firmly among the fastest collapsing nations in the world. As we've seen, these nations are grappling with extraordinary challenges, each shaped by a unique set of crises. From political instability and economic collapse to natural disasters and humanitarian struggles, their stories reveal the fragility of stability. These challenges remind us of the immense resilience required to endure and overcome adversity. For some, the path to recovery may seem insurmountable, but hope lies in the strength of the human spirit. The ability to adapt, persevere, and rebuild offers a glimmer of possibility even in the darkest of times. As global citizens, understanding these struggles is the first step toward fostering compassion and awareness. Don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and suggest topics for future videos.